And go Dogs, apparently. I heard the, guys, I ain't gonna lie, New Year's Eve, I tend to go to bed early. I didn't watch the game. But the boys were just blowed up about it over the infamous thread that night. So I got to read basically a play-by-play the following morning with the kind of color commentary you could expect from certain of our guests. So, good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023. Good to see a pretty good crowd in the chat this morning. I don't know if any of y'all noticed this or not, but we had several hundred views on Friday's Firearms Friday, which is it really warms my heart because we actually make it a point not to over promote the Firearms Friday gig. It's Friday. It's kind of, we're kind of just having fun with some articles, and it's kind of, that show is for you. It's for the regulars. Sergeant Major says you and I can watch the game anytime. Yeah, apparently the old man recorded it, and I heard it was a hell of a nail biter, 42-41, I think. So it is New Year's Eve. It is the new year. Yesterday was New Year's Day. It is the new year. So get ready to correct yourself on every check you fill out, and every other date that you have to write down for the next 2 to 3 months. And last week on Thursday, we talked about or was that Wednesday? No, it was Thursday. We talked about setting New Year's resolutions. And today, I'm going to talk about not setting them, or more correctly, which ones to avoid. So I find there's a specific reason I want to talk about this topic this morning, and this does in fact feed into the Me More Monday, because part of the war of memetics is the use of social media to alter trends over time and over very short periods of time sometimes. Dad, I don't remember the last time I wrote a check either. But be that as it may, Time magazine actually just ran an article entitled 9 Wellness Trends to Ditch in 2023. Okay, so over the past couple years, we've seen some things come up in social media, most notably in this particular regard, the whole body positivity thing, and the results of the body positivity movement have been nothing short of deadly. We've seen quite a few body positivity activists just drop dead in their late 30s and early 40s of heart attacks and the like, to no one's surprise. And so, kind of playing off of that, because, like I said, that's part of the meme war, is creating trends out of nothing by the use of toxic social media. So let's take a look at this article from Time, and it's an article from Time magazine. So let's not forget, this is one of the big offenders in the toxic alteration of the national political narratives. Excuse me. The 9 Wellness Trends to Ditch in 2023. In 2022, social media inspired many of the ways we tried to get and stay healthy, but not always for the better. No shit. Talk about weight loss drugs spread like wildfire online, as did our collective agreement to stop going the extra mile at work. That's a fun one. We turned to Dr. TikTok again and again and focused perhaps too much on body image, even when we tried to keep things positive. The new year is the perfect time to reevaluate these habits, experts say. Here are 9 wellness trends you'd be better off ditching in 2023. Plus, healthier alternatives. So, weight loss shots, Ozempic and Wegovy. And to be clear, I only skimmed this article because I kind of like the Firearms Friday gig. I want to be a little surprised by some of this stuff. So, Ozempic and Wegovy, two weight loss injections that are used to treat type 2 diabetes and obesity are hot commodities, even among people without those conditions. There are people on Reddit and TikTok and other platforms hearing about it, says Dr. Andrew Crafton, a clinical associate professor in metabolism, endocrinology, and diabetes at Michigan Medicine. They're hearing people's success stories, and those are being amplified many times over. His patients who meet the indications for use tell him that their family members who don't are asking about the injections and seeking out doctors who will prescribe them. These types of drugs temporarily turn down appetite, enabling people to eat less without feeling hungry. The average person loses about 15% of their total body weight within 68 weeks, but the injections are designed to be used over the long term, and those who stop using them typically gain back the weight they lost. Does that sound different to any other crash diet you've ever heard of? The thing about diets generally, and this, obviously as an injection, that's not a diet per se. It doesn't sound like it's any different than, there's, Dad says it sounds like meth. It doesn't sound like it's any different than taking weight loss or diet pills, which, as we all know, are basically just hyperstimulants. It's meth in a pill. It is meth. Quiet quitting. This one just made me sad the first time I heard the expression quiet quitting. Everybody who engaged in this, every single person who engaged in this, if you are an employer of any degree and you are looking to hire people, take a look at their social media when you're hiring them. And if they were vocal about this quiet quitting thing, they're not the people you want. They're absolutely not the people you want. The conversation about quote-unquote quiet quitting got loud in 2022. This now ubiquitous term refers to doing the bare minimum at work rather than going above and beyond. Now, these are the same kind of shitburgers that complain about their pay and say things like fight for 15 and, we need a living wage. These are people who are bad at math. These are people who were earning $10 an hour and complain, well, I can't live on that. Like, sweetheart, you were making $10 an hour and a gallon of milk was $1.50. Now you've pitched your temper tantrum. You're making $15 an hour and a gallon of milk is $3. Through your insane, mathematically unsupportable, bellyaching and bad logic, you have managed to increase your cost of living by more than the commensurate rise in artificially inflated wage. That is the terror of inflation, is that your cost of living will outpace your rise in wages. See, prices aren't static. They never can be. Currency is never a representation or measurement of absolute value. It is a representation of the measurement of relative division of total available asset for the purpose of trade to roughly estimate the value of individual trade goods against one another's tradable value. So if your labor is more expensive, then your products are more expensive. It's complex. It's not difficult. It's complex. The thing about things which are complex but not difficult is your ability to understand them is not rooted in your individual capability or intellectual capacity, but rather limited by your dedication to simply taking the time to understand. The real problem with complex ideas is that simple people stop at the first level of analysis and never go further. GCM says we have 5 quiet quitters at work right now. Yeah, replace them as quickly as you can. Sergeant Major says the price of a haircut appears to have doubled. I hadn't noticed. So I'm gonna move on from the quiet quitting segment and see what's next. Okay, this. Diagnosing yourself on TikTok. It's no secret on this channel. I've discussed it a few times. I'm not the biggest fan of doctors. As we've seen through the COVID catastrophe, and I complained a lot about the inadequacy of the medical profession for years prior, but as we've seen through the whole COVID catastrophe, the extent of the actual capability of our medical profession has been limited in large part by the existence of licensure, because it's not the best and brightest who rise to prominence in the medical field by guarantee. It is rather those who can pay the bar to entry. Now, that is not to say that there are not excellent doctors out there, but there are many who are simply barred from entry. And it's not just the existence of a licensure board that's beholden to powers external to the medical sciences. There's the service of the narrative, which we saw absolutely dominated by Chinese corrupted entities like the World Health Organization and the Centers for Disease Control. Now, that said, good doctors are plagued by people going and diagnosing themselves on WebMD and Google, as Patrick points out. Hypochondriacs who, they stub their toe and all of a sudden they discover they've got some rare South African leech disease or something. And no, sweetheart, you stubbed your toe. It will be better in a few moments. Just relax. Right? But TikTok has been serving that purpose for people on the mental health side. And I'm going to read this piece of the article for you for a minute, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the greater development of what that trend has meant. And yes, I'm going to get to the fat people in a minute. Diagnosing yourself on TikTok. TikTok users are bombarded with mental health content. Videos about ADHD have collected more than 2 billion views, and the borderline personality disorder hashtag has 190 million. There are whole sequences of videos on TikTok where people talk about having borderline personality disorder, multiple personality disorder, and they very cutely switch back and forth between 3 or 4 personalities, and they talk about, oh, well, I'm Steven, and I'm the strong, dominant force of the personality group. And they talk about their personality groups. Sweetheart, you do not have multiple personality disorder. Having multiple personality disorder does not mean that you have multiple personas between whom you can switch control of the body entity voluntarily and readily. That's not how that works at all anywhere. But there is a growing community of people on TikTok who believe that to be the case. and an even faster growing community of people who are abusing that insane belief in order to create growing channels for monetization. That's one of the scary ones. Not to mention the rapid feeding and increase of the social contagion that is the gender dysphoria trend, the gender dysphoria. Oh God, what is the thing called? A short-lived trend that, anyway, fad, the gender dysphoria fad. Clips tagged with hashtag autism hover around 15 billion views. Mental health professionals say it's now common for the people thumbing through these posts, often teens, to diagnose themselves with whatever condition resonates the most. We see a lot of misinformation being spread while high-quality content tends to perform poorly, says Kate Kowalczyk, a therapist who practices in New York and California. Combine that with difficulty assessing mental health care in the U.S., and it's a recipe for self-diagnosis. People often use TikTok to find language to describe an experience they're having but didn't previously know how to express. While this can foster feelings of support and validation, self-diagnosis based on information shared by unqualified content creators won't always be accurate. And she mentions here, while this can foster feelings of support and validation, it's not just that. We've talked about the cult behavior, the cult mentality stuff before. And it's not just validation and self-diagnosis, but often, especially the low-quality content that she's talking about, because there are actually professionals and doctors and people who are actually involved with people who legitimately have certain of these health conditions, mental health conditions. The ones that do well are the flashy ones that are not legitimate soft science professionals, and it goes beyond the feelings of support and validation, and has that cultish mentality where not only are you given validation, as it were, but you're told anybody who doesn't support and validate you is hateful and dangerous and causing you harm. And that's not true. It's possible, but it's incredibly unlikely, right? If TikTok has convinced you to have your genitalia mutilated to satisfy the social contagion of gender identity, and you're 11 or 12 years old, and your parents are saying, no, you shouldn't let somebody cut your crotch apart for clicks on TikTok. It is the parent that loves you. It is not the TikTok follower that loves you. Okay? You need to remind people, if you experience anyone like this in your life, you need to remind them that the people that you have in the real world around you are the people who love you. And the people on TikTok who are goading you on to engage in dangerous self-mutilation, those people are the same people shaking fistful of dollars at dog fights. Those people are the same people who are buying pay-per-view to watch the worst kind of snuff films, right? Those people would absolutely be egging on the suicide of somebody standing on the edge of a building. The people on TikTok, they're the ones that show up at the edge of the building and they shout, "Come on, sucker, jump! Don't be a pussy, jump!" These are not your friends. These are not your friends. moving on to this next one, overdosing melatonin. Yeah, Americans are getting less sleep than they did before the pandemic. Perhaps as a result, melatonin use has steadily increased. And now doctors say we might be relying too heavily on the over-the-counter sleep aid. Okay. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give you medical advice, but for me, what works, if I'm not getting a good night's sleep, and I've got some stuff going on. I'm a combat veteran. I got blown up a couple of times. A little sleep apnea in the mix as well. I only sleep about 4 hours a night, 5 on a good night. It's exceedingly rare for me to get more than 5 hours of sleep. But as a rule, if I don't get a good 4 or 5 hours, then I just wasn't tired enough when I laid down. So if you're not sleeping well at night, before you do anything too drastic involving chemicals, I would recommend go do some shit. Right? Beds are for sleeping in. If you lay down and you're not sleepy, get up and go do some shit. Get up and go for a walk, go for a run. I can't believe I just said that. I don't recommend running. My knees no longer support it. Why? Because I did a shitload of running. But go do some stuff. Get up, clean the house, take a walk, all that kind of stuff, right? Go do some stuff. You may have spent a little too much time. Hello, dear. Good morning. Mm-hmm. How are you? Oh, and if you're really just not happy with your life, get you a wife like that. So, okay, and then I'm actually going to close on this one. There's a few more after this, but I'm going to close on this one because this is the one that I think has probably had the most dire negative effects on our culture, on our healthcare, our health culture generally. Toxic body positivity. Lizzo is not a sex icon. Okay? You might be into a big girl, and that's fine for you. But that I'm not doesn't make me the bad guy. Right? Now, some dudes aren't into redheads. Think that gingers look weird. Hey, you do you. That's fine. A preference is one thing. A preference is fine. Stuff like the toxic body positivity thing, they start talking a lot about sexual attraction. Body positivity activists that try to make you feel shame for not finding people like Lizzo to be sexually attractive are not different in any way from men who are dressed as women demanding that straight men engage with them in sexual congress or be forever condemned as transphobe bigots. I don't care what kind of clothes you wear, dude. I'm a straight man. I'm not interested. Do what you do. Okay. I'm not interested, and stay the fuck away from my children. But toxic body positivity. The body positivity movement aims to accept, appreciate, and celebrate all bodies regardless of size, shape, or ability. You've heard the expression, I'm sure, healthy at any size. Bullshit. It places the burden on those with more marginalized bodies to simply love themselves, irrespective of the very real systemic forces that promote negative body image, says Saba Harouni-Lurie, a therapist based in Los Angeles. Now, I want to run through that sentence one more time before we read the rest of what she has to say. Because we're talking about the body positivity movement here. And she says, it places the burden on those with more marginalized bodies to simply love themselves, irrespective of the very real systemic forces that promote negative body image. Okay. There's a few things to unpack there, and I'm going to start at the end of it. It says the very real systemic forces that promote negative body image. What they're talking about, what they're always talking about when they talk about that, are things like fashion magazines, right? With these rail-thin women that do not have the visible appearance of bearing or raising, of being able to efficiently bear or raise children. And they're painted from tip to toe. That's not what straight men find attractive. Okay? Right? We're accused, straight men, we're accused of burdening women with unrealistic body images, with unrealistic expectations of beauty standards. How many straight men do you know that buy fashion magazines? Right? It's not hard. You don't know any. We're not interested in what those fashion models look like. We're not interested in the bizarre clothes they wear. They're not the thing that attract us. So all that garbage about the so-called very real systemic forces that promote negative body image, those magazines are controlled and produced by gay men and women. I'll say that the other way around so that there's no ambiguity. Women, without respect to their sexual orientation, just women generally, and gay men. Straight men, right, the ones who are ostensibly blamed for the negative body image, are not involved in the production of that artificial body image at any level. They're not interested, right? So let's take another look at the rest of this. Speaking about the body positivity movement, she says it places the burden on those with more marginalized bodies to simply love themselves, irrespective of the very real blah 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 blah. That would be fine, right? If you had big women going around and telling other big women, hey, I understand that it's hard. I understand that it's difficult. And you have my support. And you should feel proud of everything that you do to manage the problem, to take care of yourself, to feel healthy. In fact, it would be totally reasonable. It would be totally reasonable if you know people who have body image problems or dangerous health-threatening, life-threatening weight problems. It would be totally reasonable to listen to them tell you what they do, what they're doing to try and get the weight under control, to try and make healthy decisions, and to be supportive and to tell you go, you do it, right? In fact, tell me what you need. If what you need is a buddy to go walk with you, let me know. right? And to be supportive. And as Time says, place the burden on those with more marginalized bodies to simply love themselves. But that's not what the body positivity movement was ever about. It's about Lizzo getting up there and twerking with the crystal flute, and then telling everybody that they're racist monsters for not thinking that that's the most sexually exciting image that's ever been placed in front of their eyes. It's about telling people that they're monsters for preferring fit women over fat women. It's about shaming people for not taking people who have larger bodies and treating them like fragile little snowflakes. It's about pitching a temper tantrum over the size of the seats on aircraft. And hey, this is coming from a dude who has to bend over halfway to take a leak on an airplane, right? I don't fit in normal people spaces. I'm 6.5 feet tall and over 300 pounds. I'm a big boy. But the world is not built for man-sized people. The world is built for humans. Now, that said, this woman goes forward and goes on to say, at its core, body positivity still reinforces the notion that there's value in the way a person's body looks. She's taking the wrong conclusion. Yes, there actually is value in the way that a person's body looks, right? When you're young, you're in that kind of, you're on that prowl, right? It's not just physical attractiveness, right? That is not some mere ephemeral that one makes decisions based on. What one looks for in a mate, instinctually, is the probable longevity and reproductive capacity of that mate. And for any of you who aren't entirely certain, who aren't tracking this, my wife is watching me say these things right now, right? Love you, baby. But that is part of the math there. You know, it's one thing to be out there, you know, swiping on Tinder and picking up some strange at the local watering hole, but even then, what attracts a person generally are the attributes that signal genetic stability through showing through exterior markers like fitness, symmetry, right? General health, right? You meet somebody on a first date and they're lopsided or limping or what have you. It's not going to be the thing that grabs your attention. Now, sure, a person can have value beyond their physical appearance, but that's the first impression. That physical appearance is the first impression. Right? One might say you have to get past that you have to get past looks. Yes. You have to get past it by beginning with it, using that basic heuristic. Just like when you're trying to pick out potato chips in a grocery store, you know, your first functional heuristic is to select the aisle that has potato chips in it. Right? So that first basic heuristic, hey, I've got a type. My type is healthy and probably productive. Right? My type also includes a very high degree of intelligence, but you can't necessarily extrapolate that from just this one looks good. I cheated. I went to a place where everybody had to be extremely intelligent to be there. And then I picked one that was pretty. But that's, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. But that first basic heuristic is this person healthy, likely to last for at least a few years, right? Like, I don't know, 15, we've been married as of just a few days ago, and capable of producing and rearing offspring. These are the first functional heuristics, and you go through those instantly and instinctually. You don't make a conscious effort to dig through those heuristics. Now, I want to show you, I'm going to close with this. These were the results of the body positivity movement over the last 2 years. Just a prominent American fat studies activist scholar dies suddenly. And nobody knows why. Oh, wait. It was her, right? Fatlicious feminist glorifying obesity since 2009. There it is. Glorifying obesity. That's what I was talking about, right? These people weren't saying, don't hate me for being fat, because it's beyond my control. I have a glandular issue. I have a this, I have a that. No. Instead of, guys, you don't need to pick on the fat kid all the time. We went from that to date me, you bigot. And look, I don't need to go out and insult and harass fat people for being fat, right? That it's not that what they are should invite violence, ridicule, and harm to them. Shame is a valuable tool. And I could do a whole show on the value of shame in constructing and maintaining a social order. But this woman says glorifying obesity. In no context are the health ramifications of obesity positive. It's not something you should celebrate or be happy about. It's something that you should take very seriously and treat like the threat to your life that it is. I know some big people, right? Hell, I fought that fight. When I was still active duty, it was a constant struggle. When I first got out of the Army, I put on a lot of weight really fast because part of what it took me to stay within the Army regulations for body composition, right? Because at 6'6", the Army regulation said that I was supposed to weigh no more than 217 pounds. I never weighed less than 250 while I was active duty. And at 250, I had a body fat composition of less than 9%. I was a machine at that point in my life. And that required running 50 to 100 miles a week, doing massive amounts of PT and physical training, right? And consuming a very careful diet for the entire time that I was in the Army. And when I got out, the whole time I was in the Army and trying to maintain that body composition, I was starving. I was always so damn hungry. Since I got out, I don't run 100 miles a week anymore. I just don't. So I put me on some weight. Now, I didn't ever get to that. I've been bigger than I am now, but I ain't never been that big. And in fairness, it helps to be taller than God. Fee points out I never made weight. Exactly. I was at 40 pounds over what the Army said was my correct weight. I was below 10% body fat. I was looking pretty fucking good, if I do say so myself. But the point is, the body positivity movement went from Well, it never was. It was never a please don't bully fat people movement, right? It could have been, and that would have been one thing. But instead, it was this. It's this weird sexual fetishization of morbid obesity that has been dangerous. It has killed people, right? Just a couple of weeks ago. This heart failure kills body positivity activist at age 37. Yeah, this is a body positivity activist. Does anything there look healthy? No, it doesn't. But here you go, Time magazine. Time magazine ran this article, 9 wellness trends to ditch in 2023. This is an interesting turn in the meme war because the left is starting to I don't want to be too optimistic about this because optimism is not something that we can feel consistently for the opposition. But it seems like with things like the huge financial losses that Disney suffered, the turning of the turning of the Star Wars franchises, the grotesque, the just abysmal failure of the last dozen or so super woke films, and now Time magazine saying, okay, we need to back off some of this stupid. Maybe they're starting to figure out that left-wing Twitter prior to Elon Musk did not actually represent the majority of Americans. The majority isn't actually interested in bizarre sexual fetish. The majority isn't actually interested in comestive suicide through caloric intake. The majority isn't actually interested in straight communism. And so with that, going into the new year, I think we can take just a little dose of hope. Just a tiny little 10 milligram white pill going forward and having a little bit better of a year. So happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to the new one. And we love you, and we will see you tomorrow.